Can you confirm that we have audio? I see that Laura Taylor, Ecosystems Engineering, Frank the Tank are already here. Sweet. So, as soon as you can, please confirm that you can hear me. Zero Cool, hello. Still waiting for confirmation on audio. Can anybody hear me? Okay, Steven can hear me. Good. All right, Naturalist is here. Okay, the Miller. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Several people are confirming that they can hear me. My new microphones came in and I'm testing them out. It sounds like we're doing okay. Looking at the desert beetle vivarium, trying something new a little bit with, I've got my camera here is on a tripod, but it's also, it's free, it's not attached. I'm just resting it on a tripod so I can move around and let go of the tripod when I want to and do things like that. So playing with it a little bit to see how it goes. I see that Wendy Hickson is here. Sky from Singapore is here. Excellent. And oh, Josh is here. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about the new mic. I've been having too many problems lately. Theropod Hunter's here as well. Good. You can see the beetles are starting to get active. It's that time of day. Starting to do their thing. Trundle about the enclosure. And I thought it would be fun to just kind of check out the vivarium here. The beetle vivarium, see how they're doing. It's been a month or two since I did an update. Seem to be settling in quite well. You can see there are other beetles here as well, not just blue death veining beetles. There is a diabolical ironclad beetle right there. And there's some rough death veining beetles and some smooth death veining beetles. One or two species I am not sure of. So yeah, I'm glad people are breeding the blue death veiners now. It's very cool. A lot of people are doing it. Spider on the wall, excellent. Glad to see you in a live stream. Beetle guy, welcome. And yeah, here's the word on this. Published study that I read said that these beetles can withstand pressure from above of 39,000 times their own weight. If I read it correctly and remembered it correctly, 39,000 times. They have a very interesting configuration of the way their exoskeleton is put together. Is quite unique. So pretty crazy that they can do that. So let's see, Stephen was asking something about the hotspot. This hotspot, I'll have to check the temperature. I think it goes above 80 sometimes, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think what the problem is that some people encounter is when they have a tank that's consistently above 80 and they're trying to keep the adults in there without them having a chance to cool down, and this tank has a thermal gradient in it. So these beetles will congregate around the heat when they want it, but they have, loads of options, and it gets much cooler on the other side, especially over here. There's a little damp corner. I tend to keep a bit damper over here, and so since they have plenty of hiding spaces, I don't worry too much about the exact temperature. But I think the last time I tested this, it went over 80 in the hotspot. So buddies. Yeah, we do use the word diabolical a lot. And who's to say? Maybe the bugs do have an agenda, or more than one. Oh my goodness. Just a second. I have to turn that off. Woohoo! Oh. Sorry. Apologize for that. That was messy. That was telling me that this stream was coming. There's a rough death veining beetle right there, running off in the corner. I think I accidentally snoozed it earlier is what's going on. Okay, back to the chat. Here we go. Oh, Supreme Gecko's here. Welcome. And so, Frank the Tanker, you're talking about the parasitic wasps that seem to bother blue death feigning beetles? Or the diabolical ironclads? Which one are you talking about? I've heard of the parasites of the blue death feigning beetles. And the beetle guy, I do have my beetle incubator. Yep. Still have it. Yeah, I've seen a couple of reports, and I even saw someone post a picture of larvae of some type that had exited from the beetle. And I wasn't sure if they were fly larvae or wasp larvae or something like that, but whatever they weren't baby beetles. They weren't blue death feigning beetle larvae. They hatch from eggs anyway, but some people were saying they were. That's not what they are. They were some type of parasite, and it was rather sad. Oh, sorry about the airplane going by. Not much I can do about that. Aquaballs, hello. Oh, there's one climbing there. So ironclads could survive being stepped on. I wouldn't want to experiment with that, though. Apparently, yes, they're put hunter. I wouldn't want to experiment with it either. Can't be comfortable for the beetles, but apparently they can survive it. And sometimes people trying to pin diabolical ironclad beetles fail because the steel pin bends rather than penetrate the beetle's exoskeleton. Oh yeah, these love crickets. They do love fresh crickets. In fact, that brings me to what I'm going to do next. I have a little dish of food that I'm going to be offering them. I've got a little smorgasbord here. Again, sorry about the airplanes. Nothing I can do about it. Hopefully you're not hearing them as much as I am. So this little dish has some soaked fish food pellets, some dried mealworms, and a fresh pre-killed cricket. So I'm going to put this in here, and we'll see if that gets them going. I kind of suspect they'll show some interest in that because they generally do. So we're going to get some instant interest. Check this out. What is he going to go for first? The rough death feigning beetle found everything first and goes straight for the fish food. See Pepe Rondo here, Ruben Dali, Northwest Morphs, 503 Menagerie. Oh yeah, I've been giving them the bee pollen as well. They do seem to like that. Good point. Christina Flint, welcome again. Sorry, I'm jiggling. I'm trying not to jiggle. Camera, Pepe Rondo. So Aquaballs just received an order of Porcelia expansis from a very popular online store. They have new staff forgot to unpack the heat pack. Oh no! Icepods all DOA. Oh, that's sad. Well, it's good that they'll replace it, but that's a sad situation. So magnificent animals. Some will munch fish flakes just fine. I haven't fed a ton of my inverts fish flakes a lot because they end up molding in some of my setups when I do that. So I like to use the pellets. Helios 56, a miniature house to go with this teeny bowl. Like a human style house. Is that what you're saying? I'll say so, Christina. This is a different species of death feigning beetle. There are quite a few. So I have these, the blue death feigning beetles, and then I have this one's a rough death feigning beetle here, and I also have some smooth death feigning beetles in here, and some other non-death feigning beetles that are also desert beetles, and the diabolical ironclad beetle, which tends to inhabit some habitats that are not quite as deserty, but it still does well in a desert habitat. So, so JH is asking about the color of the substrate. Look at this. This one's going straight for the fish food pellets too. Well, maybe I speak too soon, but it's kind of what it looks like it's doing. Zoom in a little bit and see. No, it's nibbling on the fish flakes. I mean, the fish pellets first. Um, so JH, you were asking about the substrate. This substrate is a 2-layer substrate. It is produced by US Invertebrate LLC, and they have the you can't see it really well here with the way the lighting is, but they have a bottom substrate that has organics in it for the beetles and the larvae, and then on top of it you put a top dressing of this orange sandy slash rocky substrate that really shows off the colors, particularly of the blue death feigning beetles, and looks a lot like their natural habitat. At least parts of their natural habitat have this kind of stuff, so it's kind of fun. And ecosystem engineering, yeah, these are the color enhancing cichlid pellets. I tend to, it's kind of my go-to when I'm feeding isopods and so on. I figure with some of the isopods it may or may not help with color enhancement, but I tend to use it. Well, I have rubber duckies for sale. I can't ship them currently. Hopefully that will change in the future. I don't know if it will, but I wish I could. So Frank the Tank asking a question about desert beetles. Do you think we'll seeing hybrids soon for the fact that we keep different species communal together? Good question. Great question. I'm not sure. I think a lot of these beetles, not all of them, but many of the beetles we keep together tend to inhabit similar niches and don't seem to hybridize much in the wild, and that doesn't always mean anything in the captive environment. Sometimes you'll get species that can coexist very well in the wild without hybridizing, but in captivity for some reason they do. Not sure why that is. I guess time will tell. I kind of doubt it. That's my gut reaction. Is not going to happen, but who knows? Aqua balls. Oh, I think that's awesome. You keep isopods with your son. So beetle guy, you may well have book lice. It's possible. Could be book lice in that tank. From what I understand, book lice can be a fairly decent addition to a cleanup crew in a somewhat arid environment. So they could be arid springtails too. So Supreme Gecko, Wally, that's a good question. I'm not sure if this is, if the top, exactly what's in it. I can't seem to recall right now. I think US Invertebrate had some more information for me, but I just don't remember. But it's a great question. I see Crystal's in the house as well, and Aunt Sandy skinks. Excellent. Oh, Christina, congrats on the Japanese magic potions. Oh, Sandy is here, and I wanted to answer Sandy's question. Sandy posted a question on Patreon, Aunt Sandy skinks. This question was, do you culture dubia? And Sandy was thinking, no, I don't think you do. And you're right, Sandy. I don't culture dubia because I'm not allowed to have roaches in my house. So let's see, is it going to go after the cricket? It kind of walked over the mealworms, the dried mealworms. It looks like it's going straight into the cricket. Yep, there it goes. So my hope, this is my hope. I'm just going to spill my dreams right here, and you can listen if you want. What my dream is, it's to get a facility that is not attached to my house, and my wife is okay with me having a facility that's on our property where I have roaches in it, as long as it's not the house. Or at some distance from the house. Hopefully, I would prefer it to be close, but if I had to, drive a little ways or just walk down the street or whatever. Ideally, it would be on the property. Have a facility where I can keep um, all that kind of stuff, the kinds of things I'm not allowed to keep at home, as well as other things. I would move a lot of my collection to that facility, I think, and that's what I want to do. That's my dream. So, okay, spider on the wall. You're in Utah, so you can pick up. Okay, then that could be a thing, as long as I have enough stock. Could totally be a thing. So I'm going to be vending at the expo, Wasatch Expo in May, May 6th, I believe it is. I will be there. Yeah, my wife is not a huge fan of whip scorpions, but she's okay with them. Basically, it's just roaches and tarantulas in the house that I can't have. But as long as it's outside of the house, it's a possibility. I do have a storage shed, but it's like storage because it's not climate controlled. I don't know how much it would cost to take that shed and convert it to a climate controlled place that is, heated in the winter and cooled in the summer. Whoa, there he goes, dragging off the cricket. Um, it's not very big, but it might be big enough to do some of those things. Yeah, 503. A little bit like Clint's reptile room. My vision for it is a little bit different from what he does, and I think what he does is fantastic. So it's nothing against that. It's just what I would want to do would be a little bit different in that I would want people to come and visit it. I would want to get at least a portion of the facility um, approved as a containment facility for aphis, so that I could keep some species of invertebrates that people normally can't keep without containment facilities and permits, and have it be like an insectarium. That would be part of it. I would definitely have some reptiles there because I love reptiles, of course. As if you watch this channel, I'm just trying to hope if I focus on this cricket that they'll track it down, but maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know. I don't know if it dropped it because it was tired or just had a problem. Um, anyway, I would do some of that. I would also be breeding things like probably culturing feeders for people to come by and just pick up feeders of various kinds, terrestrial and aquatic feeders. And I would also probably do some shipping out of there. But I would do a lot of breeding and interesting things that I would be doing a lot of experiments relating to how can we improve husbandry for the species? What do we know about this? What don't we know? Let's find out what we don't know, and then try to do some experimentation that'll help us understand more about these things we don't know. So, see what I mean? I hope that came out clear. I feel I explained it in a little bit of a disjointed manner, but I hope you know what I mean. So JH, yeah, she would be okay with the shed with roaches, I think, as long as it's not attached to the house. So I think that would be possible. Are they going to fight about it? Ooh, theropod hunter. New armadillidium species, ocellatum. Interesting. Aunt Sandy Skinks. Great question. What is this with the cricket? Are you dropping that? Oh, wow. I don't know what's going on there. But they're funny. The beetles are funny. I think he found a cricket leg and he's picking it up and munching on it. Is that what's going on? I think so. So Aunt Sandy, which tarantulas would I keep? Whoa. Hopefully I didn't push the wrong button and kick you off. Didn't mean to. Okay, which tarantula would I keep if you had this facility? Well, definitely I would have a Brazilian dwarf blue beauty in there. I would have Chromatopelma cyanopubescens, which is the green bottle blue. And I'd have at least one Aphonopelma chalcodes, female, because I think they're great for introducing people to tarantulas. Those would be some that I would have in there for sure. Probably nothing, with medically significant venom for sure. Those would probably be my first three that I would have in there. Oh yeah, and Cindy, once I get breeding these guys again, I mean, there may be larvae in here right now, but once I get producing some adults, Let me know. We'll get you set up. So ecosystems engineering use IR barrier reflective insulation. Cool. I'll have to remember that. Maybe you can send me a message with that so I remember it, huh? Because I'd be interested in just seeing how much it would cost to convert this shed. You keep any centipedes, Catalant? I do. I have one right now, a young Scolopendra polymorpha. It's a Arizona locality. Mm, giant silk moths. I don't have any of those. I think they would be cool though. The aquatic beetles. We're going to check out the aquatic beetles today too. Oh, Kekapania pain. Serpent Design just did blue death feigning beetles. That's cool. Go check that out. Yes, bug barn. That's the word for it. I think we're going to have to call it the bug barn. I love it, Wally. Oh, 503, you got a 3-year-old female GBB. Awesome. Yeah, they are beautiful. So aquaballs, I have some Cristarmadillidium moricatum. Oh, and thank you, Spider on the Wall. Here, I'm going to bring you over to see my Cristarmadillidium moricatum. I had them ready here. Hopefully I can prevent some dizziness by covering the camera. Okay, here is one of them right here. Cristarmadillidium. Their spikes are not like crazy spikes, but they are spikes. So more beetles to come, beetle guy. I noticed that these are breeding too. I was just looking around a little bit and saw the babies. Look at those spikes. Nothing like a Thai spiky or anything, but still definitely they're tuberculated. They're also tiny. I don't know if I can see any baby ones I can show you. That'd be cool. I don't want to dig around in here too much. Kind of annoys them and potentially dangerous, but it'd be cool if I could show you some spiky ones, but at least you can see those spikes. That's kind of fun. Jackfruit, yeah. Oh, I like the arthropodobodes too. The arthropodobode would be a good name for the facility. Head in a hat, I can see that too. Eyes in a mouth with a cap. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Kind of digging that. Okay, so we're going to go look at the aquatic beetles if you're ready for that. Who's ready for some aquatic beetles? Let me see. I'm going to turn off a couple of lights so that we can see better into the aquarium. See what we can find here. See some scuds, some snails quicking around. Ethan Livingston. Oh, Punta Canas are great. They tend to be pretty hardy. Mostly seeing snails right now. I see some beetles up top. We'll make sure you get to see some beetles. Some of the beetles startle pretty severely when they see a human or anything that just kind of startles them. Here's the tank in general, and you can see at the top we've got the we've got the Dinutus whirligigs. So Punta Canas, make sure they have good ventilation. They do love moss. They love to eat it. That's true. They love good ventilation, good moisture gradient. They like veggie food, but they like just about anything. But there's a little beetle swimming there. A couple of small beetles, medium-sized beetles, I should say. There you go. can be difficult to focus on the Dinutus and not focus on the light, but this is a pretty decent view of them. So one thing that's going on in this tank, there is a little bit of algae growth up there in the front. And I do have some snails in there and they help with that. But a lot of the color in this tank comes from the Mopani wood, and that's going to gradually disappear over time. I soaked the Mopani wood for a couple of months before I put beetles in, but it can take longer than that for it to completely disappear, but that's okay. I don't mind the color for a while. So Punta Cana will eat both, but they really do like the green moss. So Velia caprai, those are they're a type of water strider, as I recall. The water striders are super cool. The reason why I don't have water striders in this tank is because of these guys. They will munch water striders. The small uh, whirligig beetles can live communally with water striders, but these will not. These will eat anything that's on the surface. So, oh, Ruben Daly, congrats on the Pak Chong's doing so well. Oh, here's one of my favorite beetles, Sunburst Diver. Just look at that little one. A little bit hard to focus on it when it's live. So the kook, you can ask a question about isopod, sure. So this is an interesting thing about, and there's one demonstrating it now. That's one of the whirligig beetles swimming down in the deeper water. They will do that on occasion. Sometimes when they seem to have a startle response, they will do that, and then they'll come back up to the top. So I'm not sure if they need the depth. They will utilize it. As you can see, this one is utilizing it right now. They spend 90% or better of their time just right on the surface of the water, so I'm not sure they need it. And I haven't figured out what causes them sometimes to do that, because they'll be fine, be at the surface of the water, and all of a sudden you see a whole bunch dive down under the water, and I'm not sure what they're doing. It's really interesting. So, Laura Taylor, what do you feed them or just rely on stuff in the tank? I do feed them. In fact, I've got a feeding video coming out pretty soon. One of my go-tos is the fish food pellets that I gave to my uh, desert beetles. They'll eat those. Many of the beetles will. The diving beetles go for them and eat them pretty voraciously. They're excited about the pellets. These beetles will nibble on them a little bit, but they are more into soft-bodied insects. So my go-to for these is fruit flies, since I culture fruit flies for my dart frogs and my morning geckos and all kinds of critters. Um, that's what I'll give them, and they do pretty well with that as their staple food. I also give them pyralis moths because I have pyralis moths. Um, and I'll throw those in and they'll munch those up too. I've thrown a couple of crickets in here. Actually, the diving beetles, like the sunbursts and the bandids and these black ones, they really, really go for the crickets a lot more than the Dinutus do, which is interesting. I would have expected the Dinutus to eat the crickets, but they're not as interested. But these beetles just swarmed it. They swarmed the cricket, the first cricket I put in there. They just went crazy. And I will be adding some Daphnia too, especially once I get the back swimmers, the little back swimmers in here, because I hear that they eat Daphnia. I haven't as one of the things that they'll eat. So I'm interested to try that out. But because I had that filter issue, I don't have any back swimmers right now. But I'll be getting some more now that I've corrected the filter issue. Hmm. Okay, the kook. For destroys, I've seen conflicting opinions on how moist to keep the substrate and humidity percentages. What's your take? Um, I think they're pretty hardy, but I'd like to err on the side of, at least 30 to 40% moist side. I want to make sure they have enough. I feel like they're a little bit less dry tolerant than some of the other Armadillidium. And as long as they have a gradient and there's plenty of both, they'll be fine. But I tend to want to give a little bit more moisture gradient than I would for some of my other Armadillidium, like Klugai, for example. Freshwater copepods. I'm sure I could, I probably have freshwater copepods in here, to be honest, because this tank was my Daphnia tank at one point. It was my Daphnia scud tank. And I set up another completely different Daphnia tank with no scuds. The scuds are still in here. And I just saw one right as we turned on the tank and focused on it. There's a scud. There's quite a few scuds in here. I don't know how long they're going to survive with the beetles in here, but there were at least a lot of scuds in here. And probably some copepods. There were originally copepods in here, so I kind of suspect they're still here. So, Ruben, do any of the aquatic critters graze on biofilm? Yes, especially the back swimmers and I think it's the water boatmen and the back swimmers do that. I'm not seeing any of the water boatmen right now. They did survive, unlike the back swimmers, but I don't happen to see one at the moment, but that doesn't really mean anything. So scuds eat the biofilm and the snails eat the biofilm. So, and the little beetles, the little tiny beetles in here eat a lot of biofilm too. And I'm not seeing any of the tiny ones. You never know what you're going to see, which is part of the fun of this tank. I think I just saw one in the back somewhere. But, ooh, there's somebody. There's one of the black ones. The little small beetles in here will eat the biofilm, so a lot of them will eat it. And do diving beetles breed in captivity, Ratty Girl? They can, if you provide the correct setup for them. And people are experimenting with that now. Basically, you need a land area for pupation. The larvae are aquatic, but when they come on land for pupation, they do it for a reason. Basically, they will die if they try to pupate in water, and I'm not even sure they will attempt it. Whether they were attempted or not, I don't know, but they can't succeed with pupation in the water. They need a land area. So if you can provide a paludarium that allows them to exit the water and pupate, then you can get them to do that. Here's an interesting thing that I learned from Jesse at Shapes in Nature and Bugs in Cyberspace. He said, you got to put some rocks in there because the beetles will get a sort of a biofilmy thing growing on them. And if they can't scrape it off, it seems to kill them. And so he said, put some rocks in there, you'll see the beetles scraping themselves off. And so I did. I put some rocks in here a few days ago, and I haven't seen them doing it yet, but I look forward to seeing that happen. Kind of cool. I love how these beetles, the black ones, look against the black gravel. It's kind of neat because they're so shiny and the gravel is kind of more matte. That's fun. So Coro Works is looking at making for a tiny paludarium. Depending on how tiny it is, Coro, for critters that sometimes might walk on the land portion. Do you mean, tell me a little bit more about size so I know what we're working with. So Brian Murphy, for a greater diving beetle larva, would flake soil be a sufficient substrate for pupation? Not sure. I haven't looked into it as much. I feel like flake soil, just my gut reaction is flake soil might not even be ideal for them because they're not looking at it for nutrients. They just need like a sandy bank or like a pond bank or river bank kind of substrate. So something that would hold a burrow and hold some moisture, but not collapse on them. Maybe it would work. I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't looked into it enough to know. So somebody, I don't remember where it was because it was back a bit. Someone asked me if I would get a toe biter. Totally would. I think toe biters are kind of fantastic. So I would get a toe biter. I don't have one in here because it would eat everything. And I talked to Peter and Jesse about that at Bugs in Cyberspace, and they said, yeah, you can get a toe biter. We'd be happy to send you one. You don't want to put it in this tank because it would eat everything. And so I held off on that for the moment, but when I have space, I'd love to do a tank with some toe biters. You can actually do adult toe biters, also known as giant water bugs. Lethoceros, I think, is the genus of the ones that are usually kept, and they are gigantic true bugs, predatory, raptorial forelegs, piercing mouth parts because they're true bugs, and they are amazing predators. They'll even eat vertebrates like tadpoles and fish. You can keep the adults communally. You can't keep the young communally, but the adults you can, and just not with other species. And yeah, this one of the most fun things about these tanks is that they're usually really busy. There's something going on, especially at feeding time. I'm not feeding right now because I don't want to steal the thunder of my feeding video. But even when I'm not feeding them, there's always something going on. These are RI Naturalist is asking what their care is compared to fish. I would say very similar but easier. The water quality is not as important because they're not breathing or absorbing the uh, water in the same way that fish are. So you want to maintain some water quality, but it's not nearly as they're not as sensitive as most fish are to that. I would say you still need to keep some balance. Keep algae from overtaking the tank, that kind of thing. And this is dwarf water lettuce. This plant that I grow on the surface here is dwarf water lettuce, and it is fantastic at removing excess nutrients. In fact, it's so great at it that I have to fertilize this tank. You see how some of those leaves are starting to yellow? It's because I wasn't fast enough on the fertilizer, I guess. Um, I have to fertilize this tank like twice a week with all-in-one plant fertilizer for aquariums specifically. And I also have to thin this plant back about once a week. I have to take a handful or two of this plant out, and it's really good at sucking up excess nutrients, helps keep the water clean, have a filter to accomplish the same goal. And so they're really easy. I'd say they're like fish but easier, I guess. I usually do a partial water change every week, just like 20% of the water or so, and that's about it. So about the Laura Taylor, I'm glad that's helpful because yeah, this stuff I grow this on the top of my goldfish tank and top of my Endler tank, and I'm always yanking it out. Great nutrient export, but yeah, it will run out of balanced. It will run out of balance if it's just eating fish waste. It will. It messes up some of the micro and macronutrients just to feed on that, and so that's why it needs the fertilizer because it's going to pull out tons of nitrates and phosphates and iron and um, potassium. It'll pull all those out, but it'll pull them out at different rates and they'll be available at different rates. So that balanced fertilizer helps keep it at its peak. And if I don't fertilize it twice a week, it really starts to crash hard. So I do recommend that. It doesn't grow quite as fast as duckweed. I kind of hate duckweed. I want to love it, but I feel like it gets so pestiferous and I can't get rid of it. And I look at it and it's like doubled um, the next day. So I prefer the dwarf water lettuce to it. And you can actually get some really big dwarf water lettuce. I think the only reason that it's dwarf is because we're limiting nutrients, we're limiting light and whatnot in a tank like this. In my goldfish tank, which is bigger and has a lot more light intensity, the dwarf water lettuce gets much bigger than this. So Ethan, yeah, I do live streams pretty much every Wednesday. Occasionally I do it on a different day if I'm a guest on someone else's stream or I have a guest that can't do it on Wednesday, but generally it's Wednesday at this time. Hey, Bug Hub is here. Jose, welcome. So, all right, yeah, I might do some floating plant videos. It's funny. The the this channel really started out with aquatic things, and of course, I'm still interested in aquatic things, is quite obvious from this video. But I don't do that many videos on the aquatic stuff, even though I've never stopped keeping it. I guess you could say I've changed my emphasis somewhat. but I've never stopped keeping aquatic things. I have got fish tanks and shrimp tanks and stuff. And when I lived in Hawaii, I couldn't sell live foods, couldn't ship live foods out of the state or anything. What could I do? I could, and I wasn't really keeping, well, I was keeping marine isopods at the time, but that's it. And uh, so what I could ship out was aquatic plants. I had to go get them inspected at the APHIS facility before I shipped them. So I'd pack a box, I'd drive the hour or so to Honolulu, go to the APHIS facility, and have them inspect my plants, get them stamped, and then ship them off. It was quite an involved process, but I would raise up, Pellia and Java fern, and I think they call it Suswassertang now. They called it Pellia at the time. Um, and Java fern and different kinds of plants, mosses and whatnot, and raise them up and sell them and ship them out. That's what I could do, and so that's what I did at the time when I lived in Hawaii from 2004 to 2007. And 503, you got one tiny bunch of red root floaters from your shrimp, and now you have a ton. That's how I got these. Someone gave me some red Riley shrimp in trade for something else, and they came with some water lettuce and maybe some moss or something. And there were only like 3 or 4 red Riley shrimp, so I didn't really get a colony going, although I had them for quite a while. But this is what persisted. They gave me like 2 or 3 little plants of this, and that's what ended up being the thing. That's where it all came from, and now I have like 3 tanks covered in it. Oh, young lad, you know the old Aquarimax podcast? Yeah, it used to be all about fish and stuff. We started in 2008, and I think we went till 2016 or so. Did over 300 episodes, all on aquatics. Okay, CoralWorks, I'm looking at your tank specifications there. We'll have a lid. The diving beetles will go out onto the land. Um, I don't know if the whirligigs will do it, but the diving beetles will. I've seen beetles crawl up onto the mapani wood or crawl up onto this or crawl up onto the plants. So that might actually be enough if you have the diving beetles in there. You may have that happening. Oh, that's awesome, young lad. That is so cool. Well, thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Oh, let's get a look at the back legs beetle guy of I mean well, yeah, I guess I sort of spoiled it, but watch how they swim. See if you can see it. I'm not sure if any of the front legs are doing any locomotion, but the back legs seem to be doing the majority of the motion. Can you see it? It's a really awkward angle for me, so I can't really see the screen super well, so I'm hoping you can see it. But can you see the back legs doing their thing? Cool. I'm going to bring it back up because that's a super awkward angle, like I said. Okay. Um, so crystals, pets, and plants. When I lived in Italy to have pets, I had a betta and I had a turtle. I had our little baby red-eared slider because they can sell the red-eared sliders there. I didn't know much about red-eared sliders at the time, and it did well while I had it. I did my best with what I had, but I had a betta and a red-eared slider there, and a very short-lived goldfish, unfortunately, that I tried to rescue, and it didn't go well. So toe biters, let's see, they're true bugs. They get really big, maybe 2.5 inches, and they are true bugs, so they're not beetles, so they're not closely related to whirligig beetles at all. They have a similar body shape, and I don't know if you can see it's hard to focus on the front limbs here. They have kind of raptorial forelegs, a little bit like a tailless whip scorpion. They're sideways, but they're raptorial forelegs. They have those too. And then they have a piercing mouth. and they're kind of intense. I was bitten by one when I was about 13. Very memorable bite, pretty painful. They sometimes apparently bite people unprovoked, which is why they earn the name toe biter. In my case, it was provoked. I picked it up and it bit me. Yeah, I have a tank with a million guppies too. Well, they're endlers, but there are so many in here, and there's a ton of emergent plants maintaining the water quality, and the lighting is crummy from here, so I'm not going to make you keep looking, but there's a ton of water lettuce in there. There's a ton of pothos growing out of the tank, a ton of zebrina growing out of the tank. It's insane. So I'm not sure about the water boatmen and back swimmers going on land coral works, but beetles for sure, some of them will go on land. I don't think endlers and guppies would get along with the diving beetles very well. So Tito Brunacci, we did some isopods. We might do some more, depending on how much time we have. I'm pretty sure the beetles would go after the guppies to some extent. Pretty sure. And yeah, a lot of my extra guppies going to the garters, Yotaro. Yeah, I have fed some of my endlers to the garters too, especially when they're being picky. It's one of the best foods to get them going. That and night crawlers. And um, my my youngest garter, my fall clutch of one, the surprise, will sometimes only eat. He's been pretty good about eating mice, but sometimes he'll get picky, and I'll have to give him some endlers. And BD Lexon, oh, you're welcome. Yeah, the crocheted critters. I'm so glad that you're excited to see them. We're glad you bought them. And anybody else who's interested in the crocheted critters, let me know. My child made a bunch of them, and some of them are going to go to the expo with us, but we're happy to just ship them out too. And oh, also BD Lexon, I need to check the shipping to see how much the shipping charges ended up. So see if I need to refund you for shipping. Um, so yeah, I need to make myself a note to do that. Yeah, guppies were they the first fish I successfully bred? I think they were. I think I bred guppies when I was like 12 or 13 or something. And then the next one was either white cloud mountain minnows or zebra danios, I think. Sean Clark, hello, and thanks for dropping in, and thank you for liking the stream, everybody. We got 51 people on the stream and 36 likes. Let's see if we can boost that. So on the top of the aquarium, these are large whirligig beetles swimming about. So they're not isopods, but they have an isopod-like shape, but they're not closely related at all because they're beetles, not crustaceans. But it's a good question. Let's see, we're checking out other aquatics in here too. We've got various diving beetles. I love the markings on this individual here. I think I've got a couple of these. I have the light head and the light tip of the abdomen, and everything else is that kind of almost glossy black color. It's cool. So busy. Love the fact that they're so busy. Trying to focus on it. There's a better focus. Oh, Yotaro, I'm sorry you had to put down one of your long-tailed grass lizards. Tachydramus are so fascinating, and I bet that was hard because they're so personable too. But yeah, go ahead and send me a message, and I can ask my daughter about it. I'm sure she'd be happy to get working on that. But again, I'm sorry for your loss. That's sad. Look at this little guy. What's it doing? Oh, sorry, Crystal, you lost your betta, but shrimp would be cool too. I think that ram's horn, I can't tell for sure if it was just a shell or if it's actually trying to eat it. I can't tell. The one on the glass in front is obviously live, but that other one, I'm not sure. Here's one of those. Is that called the banded? I'm not sure. I'm still not sure on all the names for all of the diving beetles because there are so many and they're all so different, which is fantastic. I'm just still learning. You can see a scud right in the middle of the screen. No, it disappeared into the gravel. And here's this little guy again. Oh, going up to the top. Let's go back up to the whirligigs for a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, Yotaro, an abscess. That's the worst. Do you want to try to see the tank from the top? Here, I'll move the lid and we'll see what that looks like if we can. Oh, that's kind of a fun view. A little bit hard to get a perfect focus, but there's a lot of glare from that light. So what I would like to do eventually is set up a paludarium and see if I can get some breeding from these beetles. But you do need a paludarium, basically, to breed them so the the larvae will be able to pupate on land. And that is cool, Yotaro. At least you have one of her babies. And, oh, breeding those must be something. Which species of Tachydromus do you keep? Do you keep more than one, or? Whoa. These are little like speedboats. They're crazy, super active, high metabolisms too. I need to feed these more often than the other beetles. So I don't know if these are all from the same body of water, but they're from the same area. They're from the area around bugs in cyberspace in Arizona. So Timotheos, I would say if you're going to get like the aquatic beetle starter packs, aquatic insect starter pack, I should say, from bugs in cyberspace, which is a good option, then you should start with the a 5-gallon tank or bigger. 5-gallon tank would be the minimum that I would recommend. It depends on what you're getting. I mean, you can do a smaller tank if you're just getting a few beetles or something like that. But I would say probably a 5-gallon tank is a good place to start. If you can go bigger, go bigger. So coral works. I would do a false bottom, but I'd probably, to be honest, put something like ABG, and I'd put some kind of ramp, and I do like an ABG mix to keep the substrate, you know, so they can burrow in it, but also so it's not doesn't go anaerobic on them. I might try something like that, or maybe do more of a sandy base and then not do a false bottom. Not sure. So Yotaro, I think Tachyderma sexlineatus, is that the one that usually shows up or has shown up in like PetSmart and so on? Those are so cool. I love them all, but I think that's the one that sometimes shows up in the big box stores. Is that true? Oh, I love that they already know you, Yotaro. I think these are the next emerald tree skink in a way, in that they seem to be very personable and less afraid of people than some others, and I think that that's really cool. I would love to get some someday. They totally look like UFOs, and you know what else looks like UFOs is the back swimmers, which of course I don't have any of right now, but I'll be getting some. And Yotara, I think in your case you don't have to feel bad for getting them from PetSmart because you're you're producing captive bred stock. You know, um, I think that people need to remember that uh, if you are getting some individuals that have no doubt been imported to PetSmart, and I know that's not the best place to get lizards, but at the same time, you are going to take good care of them and also produce stock to get into the hobby that's captive bred. So I think that's pretty cool. What is not cool is when people just buy them, buy imported stock and then don't put the investment that they deserve into it, and then the lizards end up dying, and then they go back and buy more. That we definitely need to avoid and try to get people to stop doing that in the hobby. But what you did, I think, is great. And Yotaro, at some point, I probably will be when I have enough space, for sure. And Dominic, the aquatic beetles can breed if you provide the right environment. At least some of them can. So at some point, I want to set up a paludarium and get that going. Well, we have about 4 more minutes. It's been fun for me. I hope it's been fun for you too, to divide our time between the desert beetle vivarium and this the other very different environment of an aquatic beetle aquarium. The two extremes. Been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Um, I think I answered the one question that showed up on Patreon this week from Aunt Cindy Skinks. Anybody else have other questions? Oh, thank you, Sean. Theropod hunter, more semi-aquatic isopod species become available soon. Yeah, there are a decent number of marine isopod species you can keep if you want to do marine tanks. A few freshwaters show up once in a while. I haven't seen very many semi-aquatics for sale. I remember years ago, Bugs in Cyberspace had some, and he said, "Oh, are you interested in getting some of these?" And I thought, well, they do require marine water, and at the time I thought that, and I don't know that all species do. But so I was worried about trying it, but I think they're super cool. So thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you for your support of the channel. I really appreciate it. And I just get a kick out of the fact that there are other people who enjoy this stuff as much as I do. And people like you. There's not as many of us as I would like, but it's lovely when we can get together in whatever way, whether it's in person or in a situation like this, and kind of geek out. And you're welcome, Sean, and welcome, young lad. And so 503. Oh, what am I bringing to the expo? Well, I'm definitely going to bring some isopods. One nice thing about expos is because they're in state, I don't have to worry about permitting. So anything that I'm breeding, I can sell at the expo. And I still haven't decided entirely. There's one of the tiny little dwarf. It's not really the nickname of them is dwarf sunburst diving beetle because they're so tiny and they have a similar pattern. You can see that right in the middle of the screen near those little plant stems. You see it? It's not. I can't focus on it super well, but there it is. It's got markings very similar to the sunburst diving beetle. It's not closely related to it, but it's still pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know what else I'm bringing. Definitely isopods, definitely the crocheted animals, probably some isopod supplies, maybe some little isopod complete setups of various levels of, um, display quality. Some of them will just be, here's a basic setup. You can put isopods in it. It's got everything you need. And some, here's a fancy display setup and you can put up isopods in it. Might do something like that as well. Kind of brainstorming a bit. I don't think I'll have my baby snakes, so yet. Hopefully Ruby gives birth in May, but I think it will be near the end of May or maybe the middle, if I'm lucky. All right. Well, it is just about time to depart. So thank you for enjoying my my desert beetle vivarium and my aquatic insect aquarium with me. And be sure to check out my video that is coming out on Friday. Have a good one.